Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on this another wonderful Wednesday. A little bit wet. The grass, even the weeds are enjoying the showers from the heavens. 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. It's going to be some open line as we invite you to share your thoughts with us. 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261 and share your thoughts. Hopefully, it'll be nice if you were actually able to attend in person the Parliament. And I'm getting used to saying that, Maybe one day we'll be an independent nation and actually have an independent parliament. But hey, until we get there, we have to continue to press on for that healthy democracy that has been the sacrifice of many of yesteryear to ensure that we enjoy the freedoms of today. If you're not able to go in person, though, log on to our sister station, Breeze FM, and you can hear the proceedings. The Honourable Premier was addressing the Assembly. And it's good to see our parliamentarians. Now, like many of you, hopefully, we will either listen attentively or get an account of what transpired. And then from there, we'll get into our discussions and debates. Be a lot of conjecture and speculation, a whole lot of inference and the like. So I want to share with you a few things from already what was relayed to me in this small group setting. I think it's fairly fair to say that many of us like political banter. Some of us like it so much that we get directly involved. Others just like the fact that the policies, laws, and the like of our politicians affect our lives directly, in many instances, and indirectly in almost every. You think of the financial legislation that is promulgated and amended. Well, you may think that one affects that particular sector. Well, think again. We would immediately share that if a policy is for a government to decide that it's going to pursue certain road works, well, that's going to affect the country, that area specifically, but the expenditure of monies on that project means that maybe they don't have money to spend on something else, or less amount, or even increase debt. So knowing what the politics is and the agenda helps to ensure that as a people we are prepared to weather the storms ahead in terms of the increased debt and the priorities of a government. And I say that to ask you. So earlier today, a fellow who has been absent, by his own, admission deliberately from the shores, he found that when, when he got a chance to travel in 2019, he took it and did not, at that time, having a particular plan to be absent for the island for any length of time. And when it happened that it was becoming increasingly challenging to move, well, he thought where he was provided a better option. So he remained. I gave him more freedoms to move about the place, and he saw a couple of things. He said, as he shared with us again today. Now, he subsequently returned, and like many in the last year or so, did a bit of traveling back and forth. And as I look at a message here, let me make sure that I have it to hand. Now, why I share that is that he said what is happening too often in too many places is that there seems to be this unwillingness. And there was a quote that he referenced that I thought was quite instructive. And it's not, I don't think, intended to be, as he puts it, inflammatory, but the notion of how we are being conditioned in society, all throughout the generations, to accept certain things. He gives an example. As a child, he participated in a competition, and they were expected to be, someone who was going to win. That was the ultimate objective behind it. It wasn't so much of participation. Now, he thought we made some amendments over time to accommodate more people. But he watched from his own participation as a youth to now, in some instances, his grandchildren, and it's almost as if it's gone beyond just showing up and getting a certificate or a medal or a trophy, to where if you just say, I think I might be, then that's enough. That is counted. And he thinks, from his perspective, that's not sufficient. One of the other fellows in the group of a similar age thought, well, okay, the two of them are of the same era, as it were, and they share similar perspectives, but he thought perhaps this fellow, being a bit more active then as he is now, a bit more athletic, a bit more involved, may have benefited from the system. But the guy who was taking a contrary view said, well, wait a minute, I didn't have that same level of prowess. So if it was more of inclusion, he may have participated. But he said, are we being conditioned, more and more to just accept things? If there's a crisis, well, we all have to give up our freedoms and our rights for the greater good. If it's an instance of there being, the need to just go with the flow, go along to get along, and that outlier is being ostracized, castigated, maligned, and somehow vilified. I thought, where is the stalwarts? Now, a lady said in the group, she said, well, the Bible study that she's on, they asked, where are the Daniels? That presented a whole different discussion. But as I was listening to it, the first gentleman decided to share that if we look at his experiences, and while he was away, his family and friends who were in Cayman, many of whom who were connected to the soil either because they've been here for an extended period of time or they've been here through generational interest, were, his words, sort of privileged and blessed to have been here. Some latched on to the word, they were still in a bubble, but others understood the importance. Then there were some who felt that they were being confined and restricted. They were trapped, was the word he used, that he heard from many. Now, he shared that to ask the question, in that if we are in this space and place, what are we doing to ensure there's continuity for generations? There's a level of, in today's words, sustainability. Now, he shared that where he was, sort of weathering the last 2+ years, it allowed him to see how there was such a growing divide. Like Cayman, where people were trying to, follow rules and conform and be compliant, he had that, similarly. But as he looked more and more, there was increasingly a lot of people asking questions, looking for clarification, getting a sense of consensus, but importantly, not willing to speak. It was as if everyone, or every single person was just existing, and now with the possible challenges to food, to building supplies, to potentially, in his area, say to medicines, to supply and meet the demand of the requests of many, hospitals, pharmacies, and physicians. It's becoming increasingly difficult to source things timely, just like you may find it with your construction materials. You may find it with food. You find it across the board. And why is it in that way? Well, he shared some interesting things that maybe we can get into. But the more I listened to him, the more that I realized that he said in the Cayman context, and perhaps after the break, if our scheduled guests do not attend, maybe you may be inclined to gauge what is being shared and weigh in and share your perspective. He said that whereas there's a greater sense for unity, the fact that we have adopted 19 distinct and separate constituencies. You may have heard the Honorable Premier talking about the need to ensure that we have over the years a level of access through the parliamentary offices, properly staff and resources available to be able to serve the interests of the constituents. I think all of our elected members want to do the very best to serve the interests of the country. Now, he shared, is that better accomplished by the system that we have that has divided the country into, not his words, mine, 19 little bits and pieces? Or, as he said, do we need to look at it at a much more holistic, collective approach? See if I can share, more of what he said, if we don't have the guests who are scheduled. But I want to hear from you. So give us a shout, 949-8037, or toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now at Vant Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
If you care about your car's performance and fuel economy, you must fill up at Jose's Escape with the new Pier 93. Experts know that the higher the octane rating, the better your engine will perform. Pier 93 is the highest octane fuel available in Cayman. Protect your car against pre-ignition and engine knocks. Top up your tank now with Pier 93 at Jose's Rubis and enter to win an awesome track bike. But there's more. Jose's offers 2 lateral flow test kits for only $10. The best KN95 masks, 2 for $5, and 10 stylish black surgical masks are only $5. Share the love. Purchase Reflections gift certificates and enter to win the amazing Trek bike. Ransomware, DDoS, malware, phishing. If you don't know what those mean, you're not alone. But if you aren't protected against those cybersecurity attacks, then your business is at risk. Don't leave your data or your business vulnerable. Get Digicel Business Protect. Simpler, smarter cybersecurity. Visit our website, www.digicelbusiness.com, to request a callback or call us now on 623-2499.
Radio Cayman News.
Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's official 96th birthday celebration.
Cayman Islands Fire Service, Her Majesty Cayman Islands Prison Service.
This is the first ever Queen's Birthday Parade to take place in the Sister Islands.
Knight Commander, the Honourable Anthony Stafford Smeller QC, Chief Justice.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
But I do have some questions.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And what is it they tell you? The show must go on. So let's have some open line. If our scheduled guests in relation to the Child Safeguarding Campaign shows up, we can have that discussion, But in the meantime, what better way to engage our listeners on this wonderful wet Wednesday? 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. And if it's okay with you, you'll take it on board with the love and respect that is intended. Please, if you're out and about, driving, walking, running, riding, standing around, milling by the sidewalk and the like, please be careful on the roads. If you are a driver in particular, please, just be absolutely attentive. I know many of us feel rushed and pressured, stressed and strained, and we feel like we need to get where we're going much faster than we do. But you want to get there, the old PSA that we used to hear on the radio came on long ago, better to arrive, safe than not at all. So please, be absolutely careful. It's not intended to inflame anybody, certainly not intended to insult, but some of us, we really need to pay attention. Think about it on Monday holiday, for instance. The fireworks were ablaze, and many people were out, thankfully, with their families and enjoying themselves. But many of you shared that it seemed as if we were driving, and I said we, the collective we, in a way that seemed as if we were in this big open space, only us were on the roads and nobody else, and it didn't matter because there were no dangers no matter what we did. We need to stop that. We need to kind of figure out why is it that we're driving so recklessly in an inconsiderate manner. We're putting ourselves and those in our cars at risk. We know that, but we still do it. And if it's, anything, perhaps we can stop for a second. Literally, stop and just think about it. I watched in horror, honestly, just these last few days and even earlier today, someone, again, doing something that we've seen so often, oncoming traffic, and just decides, well, you know what, I can close that gap much quickly if I overtake that much faster, and sure, you get in. Now, I don't know if it's the skill that you possess or if it's just, you're blinded to the oncoming car. Who knows? We also see us, going exceptionally fast for a short distance because the road seems to be a bit straighter. Well, maybe it's fun, but is it dangerous? And it's not just the risk of getting a speeding ticket or potentially you get on an accident. What if you seriously do injury to yourself or to someone that you care about? How would that be on your conscience? So if it's, offended, well, it's not the intent. If it causes us to pause for a second and reflect and maybe reconsider, it's good. Now, many of us will realize that there's a vehicle, and perhaps we have done it ourselves and haven't taken stock of it, but let's do so now. A vehicle that accelerates really fast and gets ahead 2 or 3, 4, 5 cars, maybe even more. But we all come to the roundabout, we all come to the stop sign at some point. And that car, whether it's you as a driver, that did, that thing to overtake, those handful of cars, how much further ahead are you? What potential negative consequence do you have to your car, its engine, and the like? Are you burning more gas, or as my friend calls it, petrol? Are you consuming more just by that sort of way you're driving? And with the way things are so expensive now, you probably want to conserve as much as possible. But what if you meet upon an accident, cause some injury or damage? Now, I'm not going to belabor it, we all know, but it doesn't mean that we do. A lot like exercise, huh? We know we should exercise, we know we shouldn't overindulge in certain foods, but it doesn't mean that we don't. It's it's something to consider. And as I look at the message, someone has shared that, thanks for talking about the traffic situation and the speeding, and I'll say it in a much gentler way as I see some of the word choices in the message. But we all know it. We just need to stop and think about it for a second. 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. If you want to talk about the traffic, let's do so. We do have scheduled guests, and when and if they materialize, we'll have that, but we will have open line in the meantime. If you're able to have been listening to the proceedings in Parliament today and you want to share a thought, well, go right ahead. If after you've heard it and you want to, it's never too late. It's always good to talk about what the politicians are up to. Not just complain about what they're not doing, but maybe, acknowledge what they are doing. Critique it constructively. If it's something that is complimentary, then we say it. If it's something that warrants a compliment, then share it. If it's something that needs to be again have sort of a revisit, well, let's do that. But back to the gentleman earlier who was saying that in the absence of a unified approach, what he had said, a house divided, can't stand. And he said, we have gone to a place where we now have 19 distinct political constituencies, and in his district of residence, he's recognized that there, without question, the Boddentown electoral district, I don't think he minds me sharing that, is very much like West Bay and Georgetown and the others, where there were multiple members representing the areas. There were distinct areas. But he says as we look at the representatives there, you're seeing an increasingly more and more division in terms of the political representation. And he shared, is that the way forward, especially now? And he's wondering, what are we doing with respect to revisiting to make sure that we have employed the best approach to not only political representation, but increasingly the idea that we need to consider the impact on the country's finances and other resources. So from the budget allocations to the deployment of policing to the siting of schools and healthcare facilities, from police stations to fire stations to clinics, and the provision of an ambulance or two or three, not just for responsiveness, but to consider the impact of traffic. But he also shared, if you look at that approach, it's very, very similar to our approach with many things. He gave us an example. Many groups will come out and comment on certain things. He shared that he commended the group Amplify Cayman and his stance on this recent press release, if you've seen it, that the area in South Sound perhaps needs to be revisited in terms of the continued high-rise development and the like. But he shared, why just South Sound? Why not, the entire, Georgetown? Why not the entire Grand Cayman or the entire Cayman Islands? And if there are things that were done or are being done in Grand Cayman or a part or in a district or one in particular that not necessarily the best, should we look at that to make sure that's not repeated across the country? He gave us an example. We see the development and the call for continued development in certain areas, including the BRAC and the like, and that would be good. But is it a plan in place for what it would look like, not just 10 years, not just 50 years, and you would take and revisit it and make the necessary adjustments? Now, if we are continually making the same mistakes, well, how do we expect any different outcomes, or when the outcomes are to be any better? Well, your thoughts. 949-8037, 949-6990. Or you can call us on toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Now, he also shared, as I listened to him, and this is where I think, as a country, we probably don't always appreciate if Mr. Roy Borden, a parliamentarian, educator, and the like, had shared, in his stories, a gathering of old men. When we think of his comments, Mr. Steve McPhail and others who through their education and their experiences, both in this country and other places, we can learn from them. And if we think, as I reflect on this elderly gentleman's comments earlier, the wisdom that they have acquired, through their years on Earth, the exposure and introduction to certain things, would help us to appreciate that we can look at the historical record and appreciate what has transpired. We can take on board that and figure out what is moving us in the direction that we are. And when I listen to that, it's quite interesting to see how increasingly we're not necessarily following the best practice, to put it in today's parlance of our business sector, when we are ignoring some of the obvious pitfalls that lie ahead. I give as a final sort of comment from the gentleman when he was referencing, the continued public stance that Amplify Cayman is taking. But if we look at and limit it only to a particular area, whether South Sound or 7 Mile Beach, could not the negative sort of approach that's taken in those areas, if they were repeated and replicated in other areas, we would see the same negative consequence? I shared as an example, look at the beaches and the coastlines in general, from the potential for buildings and outdoor structures to be undermined, to the erosion of the beaches for whatever reason. You say, whether you subscribe that they're being built too close there, or that the things that are built on the coastline, from walls to jetties to cabanas to other things, are they affecting in a negative way the beach and contributing to erosion? Now, he shared, what are we doing to ensure that we address those things now? And if so, he made a final comment in relation to, in a sort of nicely termed, as he puts it, beach replenishment. If we're buying sand from another country and we bring it here, well, not only like the fill and to consider what is in the sand, but what is that sand when placed with ours? If it's the famous 7 Mile Beach, well, is our sand different, not just in color but in texture and the like? But if you put that sand there, will that stay, or is that money, just as he said, throwing good money after bad? But he also shared, could we not also look at other parts of the country and bring the sand from perhaps the eastern districts if there's a development there? He said over the years, and I did check with a fellow, I did not get his permission to use his name, but he said there is no question that there have been stockpiles. And as this gentleman was sharing this, I reflected on the comment from the earlier guy who said, as the gentleman was sharing that over the years, we've had a little inclement, of bad weather, and on the roadsides, much sand was piled up. Where was that sand taken? Is it being stockpiled somewhere? If it is, can it be sifted and shifted and moved to the 7 Mile area and other places as part of that beach replenishment, at least using our own sand? Well, his final sort of point in that was like many things. We seem to be more willing to spend a lot of money and not necessarily know if we have a positive outcome, and in so doing employ resources from outside of the country as opposed to looking at what we may have within. All right, let's pause and take that short break, and when we come back, more Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter will be taking appointments from May 30th to June 2nd and June 7th to 11th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email dr.portercayman@gmail.com or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020.
Cayman, get ready for Blossom Premium All-Inclusive. Come enjoy ambience, sweet soca music, and a star-powered cast featuring Edwin Yearwood, Vashti, Red Plastic Bag, Erica Asai, and Show Wayne Winchester. Thursday, 30th June at the National Gallery. Party time 7 p.m. to midnight. Dress code light cocktail attire. Blossom Premium All-Inclusive for KMS Carnival, a production of Calabra and SW Limited.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by
Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
Workforce Opportunities and Residency Cayman are reminding customers that applications must be completed in full or they will not be accepted. In efforts to improve customer service and processing time, only fully completed applications will be accepted. Customers are responsible for providing the required information for the application to be processed and are encouraged to review the application checklist before submission. For guidance, visit www.worc.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. 949-8837, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. And just quickly, had a comment during the break, and I'm trying to read the message that was sent through. And let me see, how do I... Perhaps that caller can call and share his thought much easier, but let me try. So we were just talking before we went to the break about the need, as the guy was sharing. He said you're talking about not just a development plan, but some sort of growth management policy and plan that is being looked at, and his comments coupled with his message seemed to speak to his name. So he sent through a message, and then during the break we spoke quickly, and he shared it isn't that there's an unwillingness to say anything publicly, but sometimes my words, from what it is, people don't want to hear what's being said because it's being said by George and not by Peter, or because George is saying it, well, therefore it must make more sense, when really it doesn't, because George just has to be a certain appeal and perception. So he was saying, yes, we need to look more long term, but with the uncertainty in the world, he gave us a quick example. He was saving and saving and saving for a particular thing, only now that he may have had sufficient savings, that particular thing now is A, much more costly, and B, perhaps a little bit more difficult to acquire because it's not as readily available. And his point, he says, it wasn't that we need to maybe put it this way, seek instantaneous gratification. But sometimes a country, through its politicians, need to do for the now without necessarily looking, for the tomorrows. And he shared that we made some significant missteps in the past, but perhaps they weren't necessarily, misguided. All right, let's go to the phone and try to take both callers if we can before the break. Hey, good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for calling.
You that great, Sterling.
Good to hear from you. How have you been?
Pretty good. Thankful.
That you are.
Yeah. You're going to soon be taking a break here. I want to hit on two things.
Of course.
I can think of right now.
Okay. Well, we have you. We have another caller. So if we can take both, we will. But you go right ahead.
Okay. Sterling, I think you had some HSA staff on there some time ago talking about staff that is, people who's always studying to become, I don't know, nurses or, I'm not sure of the position, but something to do with the medical field.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you had that on some time ago, you remember? And I think they did mention that I had someone like almost finishing up, I think, or something in that category. I'm not sure word for word, but anyhow, why I say that to say this. Sterling, our medical field over here in this island, to me, it's not being promoted enough. We offer a lot of scholarships to our children on the island, and they go away, and sometimes they can't get a job when they come back, or they just end up staying where they are, stay abroad.
Mm.
And we need more of young people to get more into the medical field, because it is heart-wrenching when you know that you was born and raised up here, and when everywhere that you go, you can't even see, I'm going to say one of us, no disrespect to any other nationality, but I feel to try to encourage our children to go into the medical field more is to offer them some incentive when they decide they want to go, and when they come back, that incentive is here for them, to give them a even more drive to come back home and say, you know what, this is what home waiting on me.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives them a drive, I would say, to even study harder, look forward to coming home and working in their own our own hospitals, our own dental office, and in the medical field.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we need to incentivize them to come home, as you said. We need to make sure that when they do come home, that, as you referenced, they have something to come home to. They can find that they can purchase property, that they can move up in their careers. Yeah, you are right.
Yes, and I think that would be a big drive towards our children wanting to even study harder, because then we got a lot of kids who's even locally here and overseas saying it's nothing to come back here for and all that kind of stuff. But if we could just give them some promise of incentives to property, vehicles, a job, and experience and no experience, and all that kind of stuff. Don't say about you're overqualified and yakety yak. We need to get our own children involved. Because if we don't get our own children involved, I say the next 10 years, we ain't gonna have one Caymanian on the front line as we having the problem as from the hotels down to the medical, and from the medicals to the grocery stores, and you name it. You name it, and it's happening. So I wish that when government is offering these, or anyone offering these scholarships, they'll put some of them in a medical field, and with an incentive for them to come back here looking to grow in their own country instead of growing in another man's country. Because in the long run, Sterling, 10 to 1 they comes back home, and it end up being a burden on the assessor or social service or degree when they, in the older age, if that is still existing. You know what I mean? We need to do something. Seriously.
Do it quickly. Yeah.
And very quick too. I want to hit on something else, but I tell you what, go and deal with that individual, and I'll call you back later.
Yeah, well, if you want to hit it, we're going to hit the news probably, and then I think Susan has shared with the caller. We'll take one after the break. So if you want to, if not, you can always call back. It's really your preference. Okay.
I will call back. Okay? I'll call back. Sterling?
Okay.
I'll call back.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
And, well, we're not just ready for news, Miss Susan. Check me. Well, all right. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. When we come back from the break after the news, we'll continue with the other callers. But maybe as we go into the break, we can think of what our last caller just shared. What are we doing to not only incentivize more and more of our students, provide resources for them, guidance, instruction as to the career choices that are available, not just to serve the interests of the country as it grows, but to capitalize on their interests and their aptitude. And then while they're studying, to ensure that they have opportunities to learn, to know that there's a space and a place for them here, and when they return, that there's opportunity, not just for upward mobility in their chosen careers, that there'll be reward and recognition and the like, but then if they want to feel connected to the country, to have a stake and ownership, that their property is available, that they can afford. Now, there's still a lot of undeveloped land. Kind of was intrigued by that caller's comments because it spoke to one of the comments earlier from the discussion I had when I was talking about what's happening in our country. Are we looking more closely at what future generations are going to face and the ownership of properties and the like? Well, let's take the calls when we come back. Stay tuned.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
There are an estimated 1,035 active cases of COVID-19 in the Cayman Islands. Public Health reported 185 new cases of COVID-19 over the Queen's Jubilee 4-day holiday. 3 people are in the hospital. The 7-day rolling average for Sunday was 57. In international news, the British Virgin Islands announced Wednesday that it has avoided direct rule by the United Kingdom for now, after its premier was recently arrested on cocaine charges, and an unrelated report found widespread corruption in the overseas territory. Governor John Rankin said the agreement to retain local governance was reached with UK officials who travelled to the Caribbean territory last month to talk about the report's findings and the arrest of Premier Andrew Fahey in Florida in late April. Russia and Turkey voiced support Wednesday for a safe corridor in the Black Sea to allow Ukrainian grain exports, but Kyiv rejected the proposal, saying it was not credible. The European Union accused Moscow of weaponizing food supplies to gain an advantage in the war. Russia also demanded that Ukraine remove mines from the Black Sea, and both Moscow and Ankara said the West should ease sanctions on Moscow to allow the export of Russian grains amid an escalating world food crisis. And the Justice Department has named a team of 9 people, including an FBI official and former police chiefs, to aid in a review of the law enforcement response to the Uvalde, Texas elementary school shooting that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. The Attorney General announced the team during a meeting in his office in Washington on Wednesday. The critical incident review is being led by the Justice Department's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman,
call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Subway is serving up a special new sauce, bursting with flavor in every bite. The new Savory Collection is a tropical sweet and spicy sauce made with a combination of spices, habanero peppers, thyme, onion, black pepper, ginger, citrus juices, and molasses.
So good.
Wow.
Sensational. Delicious.
Subway's Savory Collection pairs perfectly with our oven roasted chicken or steak sub. Savor the flavor. For a limited time, only at Subway. Subway. Eat fresh.
Due to infrastructure upgrades, customers on Canal Point Drive off Westway Road and the Esterly Tibbetts Highway will experience interruptions to their electrical service on Sunday, June 12th between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. For more information on the outage, contact COC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email at service@coc.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you very much for joining us. It is Open Line, and sometimes when we schedule things, they materialize, and some things they change, and other times you just have to, what do they say? You have to pivot, you have to flex. Well, we're working with you, and you are certainly, a reason why we're here. Let's go to our phones. Hey, good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne, and to you and your esteemed listeners.
And to you, sir, a very pleasant, blessed good afternoon.
Well, it's good to have to have a chat with you again. It's very interesting. The last topic that you closed off with the last caller, he was making some good points.
Right, as always.
The same, it's the same perennial problem about the job opportunities for children, the kids who are coming out of school and helping them to make career choices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things really which the government, I think, has to work on. There are several things, but in terms of career choices, you see, kids, of course, in Cayman want to be in the financial services and have, like a white-collar job and so on. And that pull is very, very strong. And I just feel that the government hasn't done enough to encourage kids to get into the trades and those kinds of things, because of the, I don't know what the proportion of work permits is which are given in the trades, the plumbers, the bricklayers, and those kinds of people. There are a lot of them in the Cayman Islands, and if some of those kids could get into those jobs, some of them would earn more, have a greater opportunity. For example, if you are a plumber, you've got a greater opportunity to even start your own business because of the nature of the work. But if you train to be a clerk in a bank, what are the chances that you could start your own private banking business? It is just something that I feel that government has to do a lot about. But that has to be long term. What really government could have done now are the same old things which people have put forward. You need to amend the PSM law to make it clear that if a Caymanian is qualified for a job, they should be given the job. What they have in there now is that, well, if their qualifications are roughly the same as the foreigner, then you give it to the Caymanian. No. If a foreigner has got 20 or 30 years experience, that's fine. But if the job requires 10 years experience and you've got a Caymanian who's got 10 years experience and is good in every way, they should get the job. That's how you get preference in your own country.
Right.
Then there's need to amend Regulation 6, I think it is 6, of the immigration law. A lot of people have pointed that out because that one, it says that the board may request a succession plan. It should be shall request. It used to be shall request, but it was changed. Why was it changed?
Go on. Why was it changed? Huh? That's the question.
Yeah. Exactly. Why was it changed? Clearly, in my view, there are some people, powerful people in the business community who did not want to have to provide a succession plan. Why did they not want to provide a succession plan? It was because they didn't want to have any succession. Okay.
But isn't that? And I say this because I am so grateful to the many people. I don't look at them as foreign nationals, even though some of them will say to you, listen, I've been here for a long time, I come here often, I don't intend to ever want to have citizenship in your country or to vote or to stand in parliament. Now, that's not the case for everyone, right? But for these ones in particular. But they have been sharing for in the instance of a handful or so, for decades now, that we're losing grip on our society. The values, the ethos, they're changing. And to your point, I'm glad you referenced that, because one lady, I don't think she'll mind me saying, she's, past the legal retirement age as it is now. She, without question, has a great love and affinity for the country and its people. But with her knowledge, her experience, and sort of her access, she was just sharing the thing you said, that why, when it comes to legislation, and the discussion came up because the Parliament was about to go into session, that we would put certain words in, and words have particular import, and shall or may, we substitute them. Now, is that because the politicians are unaware of it, or is it that they're consciously aware and they understand the importance? I mean, what is your take on that, how we draft legislation, given that that's your forte?
Well, it's very, very interesting that she brought it up and you're bringing it up, because it's one of the other broad topics I was going to bring up.
Okay.
My view, it's very, this is made from above, I think.
I'm inclined to think so, man.
Yeah, So you see, let me answer it by giving a specific example, which is the one I was planning to give, which is today I was watching the debate in Parliament. I watched most of it, and towards the end, they passed an amendment to the Parliamentary Commission or Parliamentary Management Act, and the amendment was to allow constituency assistants to be employed and how much they are going to get and all that and so on. Now, that is all very good. But the question that I ask is, this legislation was only passed a few months ago. Okay? It was only passed a few months ago. Why is it being amended now, and being amended in a very fundamental way? How can you talk about establishing a parliamentary commission and without thinking about a central issue such as constituency assistance? To me, what that tells me, it tells me something that I already know, but I may use it to others to demonstrate what happens in government. There is not a sufficient scrutiny of legislation in the Cayman Islands before it is passed. Because there's always first of all, there's not a sufficient appreciation that you need time to develop legislation. A lot of people don't know, for example, that from the time that you propose a piece of legislation, like you say, okay, I'm in the Ministry of Planning, and I'm now, step one is to propose change to legislation. From that step one to the final step when the legislation comes into force, it has got about 33 steps in Cayman. About 33 steps. How many people know that? Some chief officers, like who've done my workshop and so on, do know that, but the majority do not know it. As a result, they think that legislation is easy to do. And then what happens then is that when they propose legislation, it is not well thought out. They don't give the drafters enough time to look at it. The drafters themselves, I think, to be frank with you, have never made enough of an effort to educate the civil service so that there may be an optimum real cooperation between the instructing officers and the drafters. And this is something in other countries they point out very clearly. In New Zealand, for example, they make it very clear that if you come back a few months after to amend a piece of legislation, it means from the very beginning, you didn't think about it sufficient. I mean, they go to the extent, Dwayne, of when they write a piece of legislation, they give it to somebody in the private sector who works in that field and who has not been involved in the creation of that legislation. They say, okay, you are, for example, an architect. We've written legislation about architecture. Other architects have participated, and the surveyors and the lawyers and everybody has participated to draw this up. Now, they give it to them. They say, what do you understand this legislation to be saying? So they've got all these different ways of stress testing their legislation, which we don't have in Cayman. In Cayman, to come back to the question about the use of shall and may and so on, the truth of the matter is that, in my view, a lot of the legislation in the Cayman Islands is poorly drafted because Cayman doesn't have the right systems, the right training, and to be frank with you, I don't think you've got enough drafters who really look forward to it, who like are forward-looking. It just hasn't happened in Cayman. But the problem really, ultimately, is that since the policy is decided by the government and the people who control the government, at the end of the day, if those people say put May because we don't want to have to do it, the government does it. And that is why I've arrived at a position where I believe that it doesn't matter in Cayman whether you've got the government or the opposition in it. Because I know, you see, I first came to Cayman in 2003, and I interact to this day on a daily basis with Caymanians.
Mm-hmm.
I know what people want. I listen to the talk shows. They want, for example, that there should be certain jobs that are given only to Caymanians.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people want that. And people have tried to rubbish that idea by saying, oh, that's too rigid, you see, it's going to cause a problem. No. If you do it properly, it is not going to cause a problem. First of all, this is the policy which is carried out anywhere in the world, okay? They do it in one way or another. So in Cayman, it's a question of saying, okay, how many Caymanians do we have are registered as bricklayers, as carpenters,
mm-hmm.
as in these areas? You say, okay, fine. If we are going to have, if we have 100 carpenters, Caymanians who are unemployed, then we will say that this job is for Caymanians only. And you keep monitoring it. If at any point you find that there are no Caymanians who are carpenters who are unemployed, then you remove it from the list, okay? I mean, it is something you can manage in a very flexible kind of way, but they don't want to do it. And the reason is that all governments don't want to do it is the same reason that they changed the shall to may in Regulation 6. Okay? So all these things, in my view, the problem really, it comes down to accountable government. Is there accountable government in Cayman? Because I think that when you look at all the issues that are happening, look at beach access, for example. I'm sorry to move from topic to topic.
No, but they're connected, I mean.
Yeah. Beach access. Right now, there's a big debate about this hotel which is being developed in this other place. I don't want to mention the name. Sometimes that can cause you a problem. It is being developed there. People are saying, well, look, how about the National Development Plan? There used to be a plan from some time back. Why don't we have a plan which allows more structured development? Why don't we have legislation to take care of the issue of beach accesses? Up to now, these issues are just being talked about. I mean, I'm a member of so many the Cayman groups, CPR, CCG, and so everybody is talking about these topics. They want this thing to be corrected. Beach access, for example, it is a question simply of saying, amend the law to allow any access which has been proven to be registered. But the governments have just refused to do that. And the reason they refuse to do that is very simple. It is because they don't want these enterprises who have special relationships with them. When they come in and they want to build a hotel in a particular place, they don't want to have to fight a local person, a Caymanian family which had the right of access, or in a particular place. They don't want to do that. What they want to do is they want to be able to come there and do that without you having any legal recourse. Now, technically, you can go to court and say, well, I'm resisting this hotel here, this multi-million-dollar hotel. I'm resisting it because my great-grandparents had the right of way here. Now, try to now take that to the Public Lands Commission, who are not always united, and then to have to find yourself $50,000, $60,000 to take the matter all the way to court for a judicial review. And then when you get there, if you lose, they tell you, okay, fine, the other side spent $50,000. Now you have to pay that $50,000 together with the $50,000 you pay to your own lawyer. So you are in the hole for $100,000. And the government, that is the solution they have said to beach access. They have said, we want to give people an opportunity to go to the Public Lands Commission and, if necessary, take cases to court. But that is not a solution. You are deliberately doing that because you want to be seen as if you are seeming to be doing something about the problem. when you are not doing anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
But let me close on something very, very, two things. One, I was watching today, they were introducing a motion in the Legislative Assembly. Government introduced a government motion number 5. And that motion, what it does is, it is allowing the Attorney General to be able to write what are called exemptions for members of the Planning Appeals Tribunal, I understand. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is indemnity. They're called indemnity.
Indemnity, yeah.
So, yes, so that they cannot be sued unless they act in bad faith. Now, first of all, the question I asked about that, why did they have to do it by way of a motion? Why didn't they just amend the legislation and put in an immunity clause inside?
Mm-hmm.
There are something like about 30 different pieces of legislation in the Cayman Islands which have got immunity clauses. I know that because I just prepared a list last week and I'm using it in my appeal. In this case where I sued Mr. Justice Ian Kawali, I'm using it to try and make the point that nobody should ever be protected if they act in bad faith. So all I'm saying is, why did they have to do it that way, which is a sloppy way of doing it, rather than amend the law? But my suspicion is that I don't think they want to bring attention to that, because that will give me a little bit of something to go to court and argue about, because I think they are pretty much aware that my case is going on. Otherwise, they should have just done it by way of legislation. But now they've decided to do it in an indirect way to try and not bring it into public. Finally, the Platinum Jubilee, Dwayne.
Mm-hmm.
Platinum Jubilee, I think, as much as I know that Cayman is an overseas territory, it has got a special relationship with the UK. To me, I think even before independence, Cayman should start getting away from celebrating some of these celebrations which do not really mean much to Cayman. In my view, the Platinum Jubilee is something that can be acknowledged in Cayman. The idea of celebrating it, I find very, very difficult, because in Cayman, people celebrate when women got the vote. That's important. The date when the Constitution was enacted, that is important. And a lot of the abolition of slavery, that's important. Those are things that should be celebrated. But in the 20th century, to sort of bring the country to a standstill, to celebrate basically what is a dictatorial institution which oppressed the broader Commonwealth, and to continue to this day for example, even have a prayer in Parliament which says that, you see, we pray for the health of the Queen and the royal family and Prince Charles and so on. No. I think as Cayman is starting to seriously think about independence, I think these kinds of celebrations, there must be more an acknowledgement of certain events rather than going out there to say that we're celebrating, because the whole world is moving. Australia, for example, they've got a Ministry of the Republic. They want to become a republic. In Canada, they haven't made the moves, but the majority of the people do support that Canada should be a republic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are my rants for today, Dwayne.
I appreciate it, man. And the next time you call, let's talk about independence, because I'm wondering to what extent, as you said, if I heard you correctly, you shared that as more and more that we're talking about independence. I'm wondering if that discussion is public or if it's only emanating from certain quarters and behind, certain fences.
Yes, that would be very, very interesting. Yes, it would be. Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you always for sharing your perspective, and may your rest of your evening be a very pensive, productive, and peaceful one as well.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much. And to the caller, if he's still listening, a handful of messages came through. If it would be appropriate, let me read this one verbatim. It says that this gentleman is on point. The others share a similar perspective with that question. Let's take this to the caller. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon to all of our listeners.
And to you, Mr. Raymond. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm arranging to do a Queen's Jubilee celebration by using the 6th biggest tanker in the world, which I have on the line now. And they're going to be passing Grand Cayman in 2 hours' time, and 5 long blasts of the horn will be carried out to honor our Queen's 70 years of rain from the maritime scene of it.
All right, well, maybe I can get you to do the same when my parents celebrate their 70th anniversary as well.
We can do something, yes, surely, because your father was a seafarer, went all over the world, right?
I know, man. He looks forward to when you and him chat.
Oh,
man.
yes,
I must say
surely.
that. Yeah.
Okay, I am actually in my workshop at my garage now, sitting by the radio, and the Arab's biggest tanker loaded with 2 million barrels of Arab medium and Arab light crude oil is between the two islands southwest of Little Cayman, coming toward Grand Cayman in 2 hours. And I'm just going to call the ship up now and make you hear, and hopefully all the listeners can hear of this being transpired via telephone, via the ship's radio. Please hold on.
Well, for those who are listening, that is
Traffic Advisor Cayman Brac to Sheba.
It's Mr. Raymond
Cayman Brac, this is Saiba replying. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon again, and confirming your ship will be passing the Grand Cayman Island in approximately 2 hours, and the 5-long blast of your ship's horn will be carried out to celebrate our Queen's 70th anniversary and Queen's Jubilee, and this will be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for cooperating for my request to have this outstanding gesture done for our Queen. Over.
Yes, sir. Once we are passing, we will be blowing the 5-long blast on this 70 years of Jubilee anniversary of the Queen.
Understood loud and clear, and confirming your ship is from Ras Tanura, Saudi Arabia, loaded with approximately 2 million barrels of Arab crude oil and bound for the Galveston offshore Texas lightering area.
Yes, affirmative.
Understood, and confirming a total number of crew on board and nationality of master and officers and crew.
Yes, total we have 30 crew on board with the master nationality Polish, and we have crew from the Filipino and some Indian junior officer, and then the Russian chief engineer.
You have a Russian chief engineer, some Filipino officers, and Indian officers. Roger.
Yes, sorry, chief engineer is Polish. There is no Russian.
Roger, understood. Chief engineer is Polish, not Russian, as you said. Made a mistake. Understood that from you loud and clear. Greatly appreciated for your efforts in this outstanding gesture to honor our Queen once again. And many thanks from myself and other people of the Cayman Islands. This is actually going over the news waves of the Cayman Islands, the transmission between yourself and I, so it will be publicized as the outstanding event takes place for the 6th largest tanker in the world, doing a celebration for our Queen today. Thank you.
Yes, I copied your message. It will be published in your news.
Understood. And on your return voyage, you can pass by Cayman Brac to the north of Cayman Brac on your return voyage, and wishing you all the very best and a happy voyage to Galveston lightering area.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. We will, when we are passing back, we will look for this closest passes to this Cayman Island, north of it.
Understood loud and clear. Thank you very much. Over and out, and standing by on 16.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Back to 16.
Okay, this is the first time I think that the public has heard a conversation between Raymond Scott, shipping traffic advisor, and the seaman on a tanker passing the island.
Yes, sir. And you know, it's one thing for those of us who have VHFs to monitor the marine traffic. Perhaps for some, this is the first time they've actually, other than maybe in the movies, you know, and it's a sort of Hollywood style. But thank you, and that's something you do regularly, Mr. Raymond. So I was hoping that you would break out in one of your many languages that you're proficient in.
Yes, I forgot that. Yes, in the Hindi language.
Yes.
Ikdo tin goicha. That's testing 1, 2, 3. Right, I forgot that.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Yes, that.
This is it, man. And you're someone that I think in time, hopefully in your lifetime, we'll get to appreciate, and maybe there'll be some of your knowledge that we can pass on,
Yes, and right now, today, I'm actually waiting on parts to come over from Grand Cayman, taken to the airport yesterday afternoon, hoping was to get it yesterday evening. Never got it, so I'm waiting on parts now, and while I was doing that, to get my machine fixed, and I knew about this Arab tanker that was coming by. And then I came, I don't have, this is another problem now with the communications. Here's a man that doing these outstanding accomplishments, and I have moved from the old house and finally got my own house finished after waiting 12 years from Paloma. And out there I don't have any communications. So if anyone emergency at sea during the night like before, I can't hear anything because the old house that we had the communications where the tower is, we vacated that and gone to the new house and didn't have the funds to really set up something for public.
Right. So you would have to.
Public, I'm not being paid for this.
No.
And,
but your reward.
I'm just doing this because I want to do it, and I want to honor our queen and want to honor all our seamen and their wives and family and all this kind of thing.
Your reward is much greater. Now, the tower that you have, maybe you either get it relocated or a new, more, progressive, improved one. Mr. Raymond, with the greatest respect, we appreciate you. Please be mindful that your reward, as they say, is store up your treasure in heaven. With that, sir, please allow us to just pause now and get transitioned to our next guest. But thank you, sir. Have a wonderful, blessed afternoon, okay?
Okay, fine.
All right.
Yes, all the best to everyone, and be careful. Be very careful with the COVID. It's raging around again.
Yeah. You take care of yourself and be careful as well, all right? With that, let's pause and take the break. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Subway is serving up a special new sauce, bursting with flavor in every bite. The new Savory Collection is a tropical sweet and spicy sauce made with a combination of spices, habanero peppers, thyme, onion, black pepper, ginger, citrus juices, and molasses.
So good. Wow. Sensational. Delicious.
Subway's Savory Collection pairs perfectly with our oven roasted chicken or steak sub. Savor the flavor. For a limited time, only at Subway. Subway. Eat fresh.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Do you need your account balance from the Water Authority? Give us a call. Customers can now confirm their account balance over the phone in 3 easy steps. 1. Call our office at 94-WATER, that's 949-2837, and press 2 for account balance. 2. Enter the full 11 or 12-digit account number. 3. Press pound. And get your account balance. You can check up to 5 account balances in one call, and if you accidentally enter the wrong number, you have 3 tries to enter it correctly. This service is open to all customers, including tenants. Call the Water Authority to get your account balance today.
ransomware, DDoS, malware, phishing. If you don't know what those mean, you're not alone. But if you aren't protected against those cybersecurity attacks, then your business is at risk. Don't leave your data or your business vulnerable. Get Digicel Business Protect. Simpler, smarter cybersecurity. Visit our website, www.digicelbusiness.com, to request a callback or call us now on 623-2499.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And in the studio, we have the excellent company of Dr. Croy McCoy, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to the studio, Dr. Croy. And the wealth of knowledge that you acquire, not just academically, your dissertations, your countless published papers, but the exceptional experience you had, and I reflect on, if it's okay with you, I always marvel at you and many of our own, who with our parents, with our fathers and our grandfathers and uncles, in the early days as a boy, going by the beach, going fishing, having a passion and interest in developing that, and then it becomes you, it becomes your career, your life. You find a joy, man, and you celebrate it with passion.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on, and good afternoon to the listening audience.
Just draw your mic a little closer, grab the base, and just pull it in. Pretend it's like a net you pull it in, some jacks and some sprats or something.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and good afternoon to the listening audience. You probably know the ocean has been my life entirely. It's the only job I've had since high school.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to find ways to utilize this resource, that I guess you could call it, in a sustainable and manageable way that we all benefit, rather than short-term gain for long-term pain, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And stuff. But today's World's Ocean Day, and I like to not only encourage people to celebrate it locally, but globally also, in the sense of water. We only exist on this planet because of water. It covers 70% of the Earth's surface.
Did that increase? Because in school we said 2/3. Now it's 70%. I saw numbers higher than 70%. Is it because of the dredging, you think?
No. It's something called a water cycle. No, it's as we advance in technology and understanding, as with satellite imaging, LiDAR imaging, and all these new tools that become available, we get more accurate estimates of everything that's here.
But you're right. It is so crucial. As you were speaking, I keep thinking to Mr. Raymond, for instance, and the sea as a way of transport of our goods. He's talking, to a ship that is going to traverse our waters going to Texas. And so much of our livelihood still dependent on the sea, whether you're on an island with a strong maritime history like ours, or whether you're living in some metropolis and you've never been in any body of water, save for your shower. But chances are the thing that you're enjoying, from the coffee to the car to that culinary cuisine, probably made its way at some point on a voyage by sea.
Yeah, you're correct. Our lives are so intricately tied to the ocean, and a lot of these things that are, we call them natural capital. We found them here. We don't put a lot of value on them because we didn't pay for them. But as soon as we start not having that resources, and we feel the pain, and that's when people pay attention. And all along, we should have been.
Yeah.
The ocean provides livelihoods, provides, the parts of it, just say the coral reef, storm protection, We depend on it for food. There's about 500 million in the global tropics that depend on this resource.
Yeah.
As near shore,
right.
coral reefs and stuff.
With the advent of technology and our ability to leverage it, Dr. McCoy, we have your colleague Tim Austin, who, as you know, is sadly not on the back of Little Cayman, but he's other climes. He's on the phone joining us. Let's go to the phone. Hey, good afternoon, Tim. Welcome.
Hey, good afternoon. Hopefully you can hear me, guys. Good afternoon, Dr. Coy. Good afternoon, Sterling Dwayne. How are you guys doing?
Afternoon, Tim.
Afternoon. Bless, man. And I know that if you had a choice, you don't mind where you are, but you probably would prefer to be on the back of Little Cayman, right?
I want to be sitting beside you guys talking about this stuff. It's so important. But yeah, happy World Ocean Day to everyone.
All right. To our listeners, would you, and we're leveraging telephone technology to have Tim join us, tell us where you are and what you're doing there.
I was very, very fortunate to be selected by the UK government to come over to celebrate World Oceans Day and the Blue Belt Programme, which is an initiative the UK has got to protect 30% of UK waters by 2030. So they're looking at large marine protected area program, and they have a program to fund that. And Cayman is hopefully going to join that, but they were already supporting us with some scientific BRUV, some baited remote underwater video technology to start looking at our more pelagic environments. So we've come over today to have a conference about that, to see where we've got to. Everybody's celebrating what they've done. The UK has protected so far some 4 square million kilometers of ocean, which is a massive area, which is really quite an achievement. Cayman is part of that, although our area is a lot smaller due to our size. So yeah, very good. And got to hear the Minister for the Environment, Lord Goldsmith, this morning kick us off and wish us Happy Oceans Day. And we spend the day basically talking about successes and where we're going from now. I'm only here for a few days and I'm due back on Friday, but yeah, it's been a monumental trip so far. I'm really fortunate to be part of it.
Well, I appreciate you being able to join us, and with deference to Dr. Croy, we'll chat with you and then he can jump in as well. But as you're having the conference, you're there, what sort of plenaries, what sort of discussions? Share with us what is expected to transpire.
Well, I think the main theme that's come about today, which is unfortunately not, it's rather a negative theme, is the fact that although they're producing these large-scale marine protected areas, it's not enough. We need to think, because fish and most of the species we're dealing with are migratory. So they're protecting dolphins, they're protecting whales, they're protecting turtles and tuna. But all of these fish migrate massive distances. So they migrate directly outside of these huge protected areas and fall right into the high seas. And the high seas themselves are unregulated. Basically, there's no requirement. There's not a lot of management for them. So these species are then subject to all of the fishing pressures, all of the elements that they were protected from in a marine protected area, but they don't stay there. So the issue is that we really need to look at this globally. And then the other very, very strong theme is that climate change is beyond control of any of these small overseas territories, and that no amount of marine protection can really shield people from the reality that the oceans are under significant threat from climate change, and that we really need to work towards that as a major priority moving forward. So the theme was very, everyone was congratulating themselves on the amount of protected areas that we got, but it was very disturbing to be told that actually this still isn't enough. We need the UK government to engage in other countries to do the same, to really look at this as a global initiative. Captain Croy and I spend a lot of time talking about our regional input, but we really need to be thinking globally at this point.
Okay. Dr. McCoy, if you want to maybe share with your colleague any comments.
Yeah, I totally just adding a little more meat to what Tim said about marine protected areas. They're the heartbeat of countries such as even Cayman and globally, and sustaining the populations of these animals and with protected areas. However, the home range in each individual fish or mammal is some are short and some are long, and until we can protect those migratory paths of these large animals, they're vulnerable to exploitation. And as you mentioned, the high seas are almost impossible to control. And you can't control these animals. They've been doing this for centuries. So.
And that's it. And Tim, as we look at it, I mean, we're recognizing how significant the oceans are to our livelihoods, not just safe passage, not just the access points, but to our lives. I mean, you look at the pelagic, for instance. For some of us, the recreational use and the money that sort of action would create for an economy. But then how do we get people to appreciate that, from the turtle nest that should remain undisturbed to the construction along coastlines to the balancing act of development versus environmental concerns?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The ocean, you always hear that silly adage that, it's called Earth, when actually it's 70% of water. Why the planet wasn't called water rather than Earth? The oceans cover 70% of the planet, and they are responsible. We used to think the rainforests were primarily responsible for generating oxygen. We now know it's the oceans that generate the oxygen. They're the heartbeat. Croyd just used that analogy, but it's perfect. Marine parks are the heartbeat, but oceans are literally the lungs of the planet. They are the start of most forms of food chains on the planet. The life likely began, the origin of life likely began in the water. So yeah, until we can understand what we're dealing, come to recognize what we're dealing, and that comes about through learning and education and people realizing, and first of all, although they're large and we know little about them, we're learning that they're fragile, and as soon as we can start to accept that and realize that we can manage these, marine parks are manageable, oceans are manageable if we start to think of this globally. The pandemic was a really good example. The world came together, they worked together, they fought a virus, very quickly came up with a vaccine that ordinarily would have taken, an individual country 20 years to develop. But when we have a common enemy, as COVID was in this case, and we all worked together, we very quickly overcame all of the obstacles that prevent us making meaningful changes, meaningful conservation efforts. So I just think we need to understand that this is really global crisis and that we need to face it together as a unified countries around the world rather than individual people. But still, marine protected areas at home are still vitally important.
Indeed. But we do recognize these 6 hours ahead and your timing. But Dr. McCoy?
No, just adding to what Tim said, the ocean, even though it's 70% of the Earth's surface, it faces many threats. As we heat the planet up, as we pollute it with plastics and dumping nutrients into eutrophication, and amongst other factors that we can control, but almost we're not doing a good job of it. Put it that way. And the Earth is one, in a sense. And what a lot of people don't realize is, even that anything, water, whether it's upstream, up in a mountain or whatever, will always end up in the ocean. So, simple things, dumping something because it's a minuscule amount, but you get 10 million people doing that same thing.
Compounded.
And all this stuff amalgamates, and the ocean had its plasticity where it can, we've been using it as a dumping ground since time begun. And eventually that'll come back and bite us in the sense that, it can only handle so much before it starts to wobble. And, think of the Earth and the ocean and all the parts of it as your body. And you wouldn't put garbage on your side. Here, you're going to knock it off, or you put it in a proper place. Why should we just consistently, as globally, use stuff that, just single-use plastics along with, dumping fertilizers on golf courses that go straight into the ocean, amongst these other things. So, and as Tim rightly mentioned, over 50%, between 50 and 80% of the oxygen generated come from these little plants, plankton, and they have the ability to photosynthesize, producing oxygen. It also absorbs more than, it's a carbon sink, the ocean is too, over 30% there. And if something that important to sustain in life our lives on Earth, why should we not take care of it? Right. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I encourage every individual, locally and globally per se, to do their best to live their daily lives with the fact that healthy oceans mean a healthy lifestyle.
Tim, I know you have to get back to the things, and you're not, although you're joining us by phone, not able to stay for the duration. But could we ask of you quickly the expectations, some of the takeaways that you hope to be able to bring back and perhaps put into practice in Cayman?
Yeah, I'm really happy that I got to be here and to hear the UK's commitment to the overseas territories. They have a lot of resources available to us, and so my immediate take home is to come home, explain to the ministry, explain to the people what's on offer. The Cayman representative in the UK office is also here, and she's going to do the same. But yeah, the next step for us is to really engage the UK on this program, this Blue Belt program, and to really utilize and leverage the support and financial aid that they're offering to us to be able to make a meaningful difference in Cayman that contributes globally to the health of the ocean. So right. I think that is an immediate priority. So.
If you were, asked, what would you ask for if you were given that the license by the UK? What would be that thing the resource or otherwise that you would ask for that would assist us?
Wow, that's that's massive. I'm struggling with that. I do think that we need to come to terms with our deeper water environments around Cayman. We're luckily the custodians of things like the Cayman Trench, the deep ocean environments, which very little is known about. The resource potential for that area is phenomenal, and there are already people and countries looking at it. Cayman needs to be in a position to manage that and to be ready for anything, any threats that come through either mineral mining or anything that's going to be carried out in our jurisdictional waters. And we need to be clear about a path forward for that. Right. I think we need to get a better handle on the illegal and unregulated and unreported fishing that's occurring offshore. I think there's a lot going on close to our shores that could have a big impact for the region and ultimately Cayman. So I'd like to ask them for help in kind of coming to terms and understanding those issues. How significant are they for Cayman? Because we simply just don't know at this stage.
Right.
We've done well with our close shore marine parks, but it would be great to get a better handle on the deeper water environments that we are also the custodians of.
Indeed. And I mean, we know the mapping recently, the project that was continuing in relation to ocean floor. How would that play out, and to what extent would we have access? Now, I know we have a quick break, and I'm trying to twist Miss Susan 1 second longer to maybe ask of you. We do have a caller joining. What about when we look? Are you able to stay on for a bit, Tim, or you want to?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's right. I can stay. Yeah. No
All right. Let me. I was doing a good job to stay on the good side of Susan. I mean, you want to be the south side of Susan. That's not a bad side to be. So like the back somehow. All right. We'll continue. We'll join our caller, and we'll have Dr. McCoy in the studio. Stay tuned.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
JN Money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash, or use your money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank? Yeah. Pay your bills quick? Yeah. Low fees, you know what it? Yeah. JN Money, we are pick? Yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
You know the easiest way to get free food? No, not go steal your neighbor's mango, but plant a tree. Yeah, for real. More trees, more food, less grocery bills. To celebrate Her Majesty Queen Platinum Jubilee, come plant a tree for the Jubilee. Yeah, we need you. Yes, you. Make sure you leave your green mark on the Cayman Islands. Perhaps a mango tree, a legitimate tree, even a little bit of coconut or cabbage. Is it time we all started eating off the land again? Register your tree and leave your green print at www.gov.ky/National Tree Planting. Or make sure you follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Plant a tree for the Jubilee. Proudly brought to you by the Cayman Islands Government, Ministry for Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. Let's green Cayman now.
Early Bird gets the cheap tickets. Join us at Parker's Raceway June 25th and 26th for as little as $10 for general admission. Race on over to parkersraceway.com and get your Early Bird tickets before they sell out. Racers, we've got a special deal for you too, so register early. Follow us on social media for more event details at Parker's Raceway. A big thanks to our sponsors, Monster, Valvoline, AI Rentals, Event Pro, BP Racing Fuels, Parker's, and DK Spark Plugs. Get your tickets at parkersraceway.com.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And as we celebrate World Oceans Day today, in the studio, Dr. Croy McCoy, his colleague and the Deputy Director over at Department of Environment, Tim Austin, who's in the UK, right? Tim, is it Little Cayman or back in the Bluff? Where are you?
I wish it was either. I'm in the middle of central London, so we were very fortunate to be right down in the centre of London to go to these talks today. So
Yeah.
The Foreign Commonwealth Office had us right next to the River Thames.
Yeah, we know where you are. We were glad that they were sharing that with us, but we're glad that you somewhat 6 hours ahead, I believe, if I know my time. So thank you. But we do have a caller who was online earlier, patiently waiting. Let's see if he's still there. Good afternoon, sir. Are you still on the line?
Yes, good afternoon, Jay.
Yes. Apologies to you. Thank you so much, too, for joining us in the conversation.
Welcome. Good afternoon to you guests also.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, we're speaking about the ocean. A few years ago, I read in the Cayman Compass that salt water heals so many things on the human body that doctors are not able to name all of them. And I'm very thankful as a Caymanian that our salt water here is very clean. And I'm hoping that it stays that way. Hoping that no oil rig or anything doesn't crash and spoil that for us. And if that was to occur, I hope that the government will be prepared in stopping that oil from reaching too far inland. Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks very much. And maybe with that in mind, perhaps sort of nicely leads to what I was want to ask Tim, if I can. Understanding how Dr. McCoy and yourself both have emphasized the importance of a healthy ocean for all of our survival, not just enjoyment, but our very survival. Have we had any sort of salinity tests or anything to look at our water quality, how salty it may be relative to how it was 20 years ago? Is it as saline? Is it less so?
Absolutely. So the Department of Environment works very closely with the Water Authority. We did have a long-term monitoring program for the water quality in Georgetown Harbour, and then we've kind of moved to the North Sound. But to be honest, that program has fallen a little by the wayside as technologies has advanced, and we were left with a rather old system. But we are looking very closely at re-implementing that. But some of the priority of that was lessened by the fact that the water, as your previous caller alluded to, is exceptionally clean around the Cayman Islands. We are really fortunate We don't have riverine input. We don't have some of the other issues that a lot of our neighboring countries have. So our water remains spectacularly clear and clean, as we're well aware of it. And yes, the healing powers of salt water, the ability to buffer and to really absorb chemicals and deal with it is phenomenal. It's not something we should take for granted, but so we should do everything we can to keep our waters clear. But they are an amazing thing. And just to put the caller's mind at rest, yes, the government is fully prepared in the event of an oil spill. We have oil spill response equipment on island. We have agreements with larger countries to come and provide assistance very quickly. So in the awful event that an oil spill should occur, we are prepared and have the necessary resources to deal with it. But seawater is a remarkable thing. The waters around Cayman are clear. We do monitor it. If there are trouble spots, we tend to have specialized programs just looking at that, trying to get to grips with what's going on. But it is definitely monitored. Salinity hasn't changed. It's very unlikely that salinity is going to change strongly. What is changing, of course, is the pH. As carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases, it dissolves into the ocean. And as we all know, that makes a carbolic acid, which basically is increasing the pH, so the acidity. The oceans are becoming more and more acidic, which is a problem for the corals. That acid dissolves limestone. Cayman is largely made up of limestone, so we can't afford to have that water become too acidic. It makes it difficult for corals to deposit calcium carbonate, which they need, which is the foundation of most of the rocks around Cayman, laid down by marine processes that will be really impacted by increasing carbon in the ocean, making it more acidic, a process called ocean acidification. So it is an issue, and we are looking at that. The changes are subtle, but we do have pH measurements for the ocean, yes.
All right. Well, I'm reminded of our news break. And Tim, to you, if you wish to stay on, we certainly welcome to continue dialogue. And then, of course, Dr. Croy McCoy in the studio. So when we come back from the news, we get to talk more about it and have Dr. McCoy share from his infinite knowledge as well. Please stay tuned.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Since the beginning of the year, the RCIPS has noted an increase in incidents of theft and burglary of construction tools and equipment. During these incidents, the RCIPS says items have been taken from construction sites, vehicles, and private residences and are suspected to be then sold by the culprits directly to other entities and individuals involved in construction. As such, the RCIPS is advising persons involved in construction work of precautions that they can take against such theft. Consider implementing increased lighting on job sites and potentially hiring on-site security, as well as keep track of who attends the site during the day and make note of any suspicious or unauthorized persons. In international news, an 11-year-old girl who survived the mass shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, recounted in video testimony to Congress on Wednesday how she covered herself with a dead classmate's blood to avoid being shot and just stayed quiet. Mia Severo, a fourth grader at Robb Elementary School, told lawmakers in a pre-recorded video that she watched a teacher get shot in the head before looking for a place to hide. 19 children and 2 teachers died when an 18-year-old gunman opened fire with an AR-15 style rifle inside Robb Elementary School on May 24th. Authorities in Germany should prepare for several possible pandemic scenarios this fall that would likely strain the country's health system and critical infrastructure, an expert panel said Wednesday. The government-appointed panel said the country continues to have immunity gaps in the population, and it recommended promoting vaccines against the coronavirus and making them more easily available. The panel advised authorities to ensure that testing facilities can be scaled up quickly in the fall, and also said COVID-19 patients also should get earlier access to antiviral drugs. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shana Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
We wanna go and dally.
Backyard, Caymanian and Jamaican cuisine. 7 Mile Beach might have changed, but Backyard is bringing it back. True Caribbean food in the heart of 7 Mile, just like Mama's home cooking. Brown stew snapper, Cayman-style beef, jerk chicken, turtle stew, and the delicious list goes on. Dine in, take out, or order with the Bento app. Backyard, Caymanian and Jamaican cuisine, 269 West Bay Road, or call 746-4603. Backyard, daily lunch specials, and the one-of-a-kind Fun Day Sunday live music brunch.
Backyard. You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And in the studio, Dr. Croy McCoy from the Department of Environment, and joining us by phone over in London, England, the Deputy Director, Mr. Tim Austin. So, Tim, thanks for hanging on with us, right? I hope the weather there isn't too bad, as we're in this early stages of June.
Yeah, it's a typical English weather. 1 minute it's raining, next minute the sun is out and everyone's running around happy. And it's not been great, but it's bearable. I'm dressed up warm.
Well, you're just there till Friday, man.
Yeah. But just picking up a little bit on what Tim was talking about, with CO2, and the fact that as the ocean get more acidic, we have to realize Cayman only exists because of coral reefs. We're basically the continuation of Sierra Maestra Mountains out of Cuba, but coral reefs is what built up these three peaks we know of: Brack, Little Cayman, and Grand. And we are dependent on these animals over time to be able to calcify, which is extracting, out of the water, calcium carbonate, to build these structures to keep us afloat, because we are the flattest of all Caribbean islands in one sense.
Mm-hmm.
We're very low-lying, and we're very dependent on that fact of coral reef growth. And if that is retarded or diminished because of the ability of these animals to calcify and keep building over time. And, one of the factors is, human beings are short-lived species compared to, just take, for instance, we all call it Panchal palmata, Acropora palmata. Those animals, are like 4,000 to 5,000 years old, some of them. So we are just a short speck in the lifespan of these animals and stuff, but we do the most damaging to slow the process that we depend on as a country going forward for generations and generation. We don't have sometimes I think we don't have the ability to think in hundreds and thousands of years from now what our impact will be. Whether it's how we are polluting the oceans, or whether we are using some of the resources in a very mismanaged, unsustainable fashion that will have far-reaching consequences down the road.
Right. Gents, we do have a caller join us, I believe. And again, welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of the discussion. Good afternoon.
Stephen.
How are you?
I'm fine. This is Vera. I don't know if it's the Lord told me this or what, but sometimes I wonder if it's not the amount of Clorox that we use that is in destroying our environment in ocean or what. Because I remember back in the days where I grew up on this island, we used to use a soap named Octagon. We never used any Clorox. And you know how we used to do? Like your clothes, your internal clothes, we used to soap it, put it out in the sun, and make the sun burn it. And when you wash it and pick it up, it had no scent, no dye in it or anything. And another thing, when the children they used to use these diapers out of cloth, and they was white. And if you did not put it in, soap it and put it in the sun, it would stay dyed up. But it would be so white and clean. We never use Clorox, so I wonder if it's not. And they have some people that come from some country that if they don't use Clorox, they don't feel good. And I remember when I was working, this guy came. He was cleaning his bathroom with Clorox, and it almost killed him. So I don't know. I wonder. What do you think?
Well, it's a question that I had wrote down in relation to runoff and like. But thank you for that question as you're listening, Dr. McCoy, and then Tim, if you guys want to weigh in.
Any chemical has its. It can be lethal or partially lethal to any animal, whether it's human beings or marine organisms. And it goes back to what I mentioned, that what you pour down the drain eventually going to end up in the ocean. And you need to think of it that way and dispose of it properly, that the least damaging, because collectively this has dire consequences for everyone, not just you yourself. And Clorox is one of those. It's a bleach. It kills bacteria, but it also kills a lot of other stuff, as you know. And she's partially right in the sense that it should not be used as, even though it's a household. There's many household items that we use on a daily basis that we should think about how we dispose of afterwards.
Hey Tim, if I can maybe pick up on that caller's point. We know many industrialized nations had issues with runoff, manufacturing and the like. From Cayman's perspective, the continued use of deep wells and the like, what's your take on that in relation to the potential impact on our water systems and our oceans in particular?
So that's a really interesting and very relevant point. The 7 Mile Beach corridor is largely on sewer systems. So the sewage is collected and piped to the central sewage plant where it's treated. But the water, the end product is still very rich in nutrients, although it's free of its kind of solid matters and the fecal colocons and anything dangerous. It's still very high in phosphorus and nitrates, which are basically fertilizers. So, but the water, I think their wells are very deep. They go to 400 or 500 feet. But the rest of the island, that's not on the West Bay corridor, remains on septic tanks. And septic tanks are only cased to about 20 to 30 feet. I think I'm probably going to get corrected on this. Maybe it's deeper than that. Even if it's to 100 feet, that water, if anybody knows the Cayman landscape, the limestone is very, very, the karst limestone is very fissured. And water, it makes its way out onto the reef at a very deep level. So when it rains in Cayman, Troy will tell you about this, there are plenty of places around Grand Cayman where you can feel cold water coming out underwater. Basically, the rain lands on the land, it pushes the water down above it, and it, of course, squirts out at the edges of the island onto the deep reef. And we find these areas around the island. We get notified about them regularly. That water is potentially very rich in organics, because once water gets into the bedrock, there isn't the oxygen there for the animal life to process it. So it remains very high in nutrients. And this problem has been identified in Florida and other areas where they also have similar karst limestone. So Florida spent a whole bunch of money to turn the Florida Keys to tertiary treatment, and they actually pump the sewage back to the mainland to deal with it now. They don't want to risk any more pollution to the environment. So it is an issue. It's something that we'd like to get a better handle on. We have looked at it to try to trace it. I know that in the early days they tried to trace movement of water in Georgetown to see if it was coming out in Hogstad Bay. They weren't able to do that. But the water has to go somewhere, and it's intuitive just to assume that it is coming out on the reef and presenting a problem. The level of that problem we haven't yet determined. But just your previous caller's point too, talking about bleach and stuff. Obviously, and Corey mentioned these chemicals are toxic to the environment. Bleach is a chlorine; it oxidizes things, and hence why it breaks down biological matter and turns things white. And your caller's idea of putting cloth nappies out in the sun and they go bright white is interesting, because the reason potentially behind that process is that sunlight contains ultraviolet light. We know how very quickly that breaks things down. If you lay in the sun, you get sunburnt through various wavelengths, ultraviolet A, B, and C. But it also breaks down biological matter. So if you put something out in the sun, it quickly goes very white. and there's another method of getting things wet. So that is an old-fashioned way of making things wet. Unfortunately, it's not good for the fabric, so it probably breaks it down as well. But that is probably one of the reasons why laying stuff out in the sun makes it go white. You see anything up in the sun getting destroyed by the ultraviolet radiation that is present. And to this day and age, largely worse as a result of breakdown in the ozone layer that's happened through atmospheric pollution.
But as we listen to you and we look at World Oceans Day, the discussion relative to the import of the way we impact our oceans. Back to deep wells, is that something that, given that we're not on a centralized sewage system, we're all using septics with a deep well, should we get away from the deep well and just have the septics pump like we did way back when? Would that, in your expert opinion, be a better solution and not have it cased to 20 or 100 or however many feet?
I don't want to commit the island to the expense of a tertiary treatment plant, but tertiary, i.e. the very full stage of treatment would be the best way. But a central septic collection system that ended up all being dealt with at specific plants that then use much deeper injection is probably, that's only secondary treatment, but it would be better than the average septic tank, which is being pumped, particularly in areas close to the ocean. Maybe further inland, it's not such an issue. I know the Water Authority are responsible for protecting groundwater, so we don't want to be polluting our freshwater lenses where possible. Right. So I know they work very, very closely with making sure that the depth to which the effluent that comes out of the septic tank is injected to is monitored so that it doesn't impact the various water resources that they manage. But yes, the ultimate aim would be to go to tertiary treatment. That's 3 levels of treatment. So the nutrients. So in primary treatment, the solids removed. Secondary, they remove some of the bacteria and other stuff through the digestion process. And then the tertiary treatment, the water's almost drinkable when it comes out of the septic tank, basically. But you wouldn't drink it, but you could use it on your garden. Everything is removed from it. That's a very high level and expensive and costly method, but the U.S. are doing that.
So are the Israelis? I mean, we've seen some of their technology they leverage, quite fascinating, and tests have shown, as you said, it is portable after they finish through their stages, huh? So
yeah, and I mean it's all about reuse. In this day and age, there's no reason why we need to be injecting that groundwater into the water and get rid of it. It's perfectly usable for irrigation when dealt with properly. And I know that Water Authority, I've talked to some of my colleagues there. They have been exploring that the grey water reuse rather than black water, which is sewage. But grey water reuse is used widely around the world for irrigation. I mean, something we should look at more for sustainability.
Indeed. Dr. McCoy?
Yeah, no, just, to what Tim was saying, in the Florida Keys, the marine industry is tourism. And, with the septic system, it's proven, I think it was the Serratia bacteria that was produced found in the gut cavity of the human beings, not in animals or any other animal. And that drives disease on reefs, and that's part of what there was James Porter out of Georgia State University that proved that. And having these septic systems are driving disease, especially when we're living in a epoch where we're heating the planet up. Because, bacteria proliferates in heated environments, most do. There are higher temperatures. So this was driving disease on coral reefs and killing coral reefs throughout the Florida Straits are along there, taking away that tourism product from them. That's why the taxpayers are willing to spend the money to pump it back to the Miami area for tertiary treatment. And it really should be something that, the Cayman government should look at in that sense. And almost the majority of coral diseases on the reef, or the majority of problems we have on the reef is human-driven. And that's one of the issues that having these systems
all right,
sort of shepherds.
Well, gents, we got a final break, and Tim will invite you and Dr. McCoy for your continued discussion right after this break. Please, to our listeners, stay tuned.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Tune in Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. for the Daily Sports Report, covering local, regional, and international sports. Proudly brought to you by Dr. Wayne Porter, offering a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. Call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. The 8:12 a.m. Weather Report, Monday through Friday, is proudly sponsored by CG Britke. Insurance, health, pensions, life, where people come first.
Approximately 600 children aged 3 and over are enrolled in local early childhood centers this academic year. 218 families sought educational funding through the Early Childhood Assistance Program. 77% qualified for funding. See if your child qualifies and secure financing before September by downloading an application form from the Ministry of Education website at www.gov.ky/education and emailing the completed form to ecap@gov.ky by June 30. For more important ECAP application dates, follow Cayman Islands Education on Facebook and Instagram.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks for joining us. And thanks, too, to Tim Austin over in London for joining us via the phone as he attended the conference over there as part of the Blue Belt program, and Dr. Croy McCoy, his colleague, for sitting with us in the studio as we celebrate World Ocean Day. 70%. And you know what? Maybe next year, with technology and continued dredging, maybe 80%. I'm not sure, Dr. McCoy.
Dredging is going the wrong way, mate.
It's a bit like, estimating the percentage of coral reefs globally.
Yeah.
Every 10 years they revise that, and unfortunately every 10 years they keep getting smaller the amounts than original estimates. So.
For those of us that either read the dystopian novels or watch the films for the dystopian future, Tim, from that perspective, we've seen it where low-lying areas, whether it's in the Florida or whether it's some other part of the States, but even parts of other developed worlds, what was once traversed by foot or by automobile is now only accessible by boat. Is that a dystopian future, or is that a potential reality given what we understand that is happening with us?
Sterling Green, it's not even a potential reality, it is the reality. Sea levels are rising, there's scientific proof about it, we can measure it. We can see it happening. 3 millimeters a year measured. It's been happening for the last, over the last 50 to 100 years. The rate of sea level rise has been increasing all this time. It's not new. Sea level rises have risen and fallen. Cayman used to be underwater, a couple of million years ago. That was all part of natural cycles. But it's the rate with which that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. The oceans are expanding as they get hotter, thermal expansion. Then polar glaciers are melting, Antarctic glaciers are melting, dumping a lot more fresh water into the oceans, and we're basically seeing a rate of rise that most living systems can't keep up with, and it's pushing coastal communities closer and closer to disaster and shoving people inland. So yeah, it's a very reality, and it's something that's a major concern for low-lying small island states that you find a lot around the world, and particularly in the Caribbean, and especially us. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's something we have to take seriously.
Mm-hmm. Dr. McCoy?
Yeah, when I think of sea level rise, I also think of the growth rate of corals.
Yeah.
And, if the corals can't keep up with the sea level rise, because most corals grow around 2 or 3 millimeters maximum per year. The reef builders, the big ones that we know about, that forms islands, and such as Cayman and stuff, limestone structures, and we have exceeded that with sea level rise. So that is really bad news for us. And again, because the effect of that is almost like a delayed response. How, as a small island nation, and over time, that's going to have very serious consequences for islands such as Cayman Islands and other islands globally. Because we don't have no high ground, I guess you could say, and the corals that sustain us can't keep up.
But gents, as we in the context of the conference you're attending, Tim, the fact that we're celebrating World Ocean Day, is this a case that we can reverse what we've done, or we just now need to manage and mitigate?
Okay, Sterling, you're getting into an area where I'm not 100% comfortable, but I will tell you what I understand about it.
Right.
There are various scenarios that the climate scientists are modeling, and it's very clear that whatever happens, we are aiming for a definite increase in temperature, 1.5 degrees. That's what we're aiming for at the worst case scenario. At the best case scenario. We're not likely to do any better than that. But at the worst case scenario, it's likely to be 2 degrees to 3 degrees. And even if we were to stop everything we do today, because there is a global delay, it's likely that for the next 50 years, we will see things continue. So it is unlikely that this process could be reversed, but it could be slowed down or indeed stopped. But it wouldn't be stopped for another 100 years. So it's likely that we're going to see significant changes in the next century that are just irreversible or unstoppable. But the longer-term scenario, obviously, is we can slow down the rate of climate change such that it doesn't go on forever. I mean, naturally it'll occur, but the rate at which it is occurring would slow down, such that animals, and as Corey says, ecosystems and animals and humans can adapt to those changes rather than the dramatic changes we're seeing right now. But there is a lag period, and if we stop climate change today, we did everything we needed to do, it would still continue for another 50 years due to the lag period that is the nature of atmospheric systems.
And just add what Tim said, it's the synergistic effects of human impact. It's not climate change and the rise in sea levels, but also ocean acidification, which reduces calcification rates. And we got to realize that all of these ecosystems, these animals in there, operate in a very narrow window of environmental factors. And if all these factors go out of whack, it affects the whole system. So you get a system that is stumbling along. And even though you extract all these factors like Tim mentioned, if we stopped all of these things now, those effects have far reaching before, any you will see any change eventually. Right. That's why it's important we start this process. We should have started this 100 years ago, but
hopefully
it's no time like as the present to start, thinking of how we can even each of our daily lives as far as the health of our ocean. What can we do from today going forward that will have an impact, not only in the short term, but think about 100 years from now, as Tim mentioned, of 50 to 100 years, where it eventually will start that turn back, because we're on a path now. Like you said, the best case scenario is 1.5 degrees rise in Celsius rise in temperature, and let's at least try to achieve that.
All right. So Tim, as we close our discussion, I'll leave you to share as you wish, but part of our prompting is we recognize that as people, as Dr. McCoy shared, the impact on the reefs are most of, human-driven, the negative consequences. With that in mind, given the evidence that as developed nations, we tend to consume and abuse more of resources, what, if anything, should we be looking at as governments and as individuals that could help us to either stave off this increased negative consequence to our oceans and to our planet? And do we need to look at the sort of the consumption-oriented practices of perhaps the wealthier amongst us, the more affluent?
I think, it's across the board. Obviously, it's to do with your footprint on the planet. So, and it's all about acting sustainably. The technology and the understanding of how to act sustainably exists. It can be done. It doesn't take a massive change in your. It could take a massive change, but there's lots of really small things that can be done that make a big impact when everybody starts to do it. It's small stuff that people can just do each day that will gradually build up. Start to understand the consequences of decisions you make relating to leaving lights on or, not going for the most energy efficient appliances. These are all things that are adding up to or contributing towards the kind of drain on resources of the planet. Looking closer to home, the amount of fish you take from the ocean or the amount of conch you get when, there are limits and stuff like that. Those are just simple decisions that are close to home. But there are the decisions that we make on how we live our lives that just relate to living them more sustainably, more in tune and more in balance with the environment around us. There's lots and lots of ways that can be done. And it's just understanding the consequences of not walking when you can walk a bit or taking a car instead of walking. But there's a lot of ways, and there's lots of kind of people out there giving advice on how to do it. I can't name all of them, but it really is about understanding that we can make a difference. And it's going to take all of us. In Cayman, yes, lots of people say that we can't make a difference on climate change, and that's probably correct. We can't reverse it individually, but as one of those nations with the higher, we're in the top 30 per capita carbon footprint in the world. We have a moral obligation to set an example. If we're going to stand up and say that we want to see change in the rest of the world, we need to live by that same rule here. So it's all about just really making a difference at the individual level that moves to a nation, that moves to the world. So yeah, I would say just understand what you can do to reduce the footprint that you have on this world.
Sometimes we talk about the wealthiest countries consuming probably 20 times more energy, than the 10% of the poorest countries in the world. So I'm wondering, like the wealthy industrialized nations, if they need to be considering the impact. But I appreciate it. I hope the conference goes well for you. You have a safe return trip as well.
You are very kind, and thank you for tolerating me being on the phone. And I'll leave you in the capable hands of Dr. Croy there. And thanks again, Sterling, and good day to the rest of the Cayman. Thanks for listening.
Well, thank you for taking the extended time to join us, and certainly looking forward to your return. Dr. McCoy, this is a discussion that we should be having in our homes and our schools with our politicians, not to score points, but to consider, as you said, what it's going to be like 100 years from now.
Yeah, now that you mentioned home, a thought went through my head. With it being, World's Ocean Day, we have one body. We only got one world.
Yeah.
You mess that body up, that's the end of that life. You mess the world up, it's the end of that. That being said, I encourage people as individual, like Tim said, each individual can have an impact, to treat the ocean as your household. In Cayman, it's our backyard. That calls
literally.
You can walk to beach from anywhere.
Can hear the sea from our backyard.
It's such an integral part of everything, right down to money in the bank. The pandemic proved that. When the tourism industry buckled on us. No, but you wouldn't pollute your household. You wouldn't throw plastic in your yard. You won't produce CO2 inside your house that would affect your breathing, because basically you're poison yourself.
You won't do in the kitchen what you do in the bathroom,
and,
right?
treat it like how you treat your household. Treat the ocean like that. That at the end of the day you feel proud of what you did. And I encourage everyone to think that way starting tomorrow, that they can have pride in how they treated the ocean.
Yeah.
Because the ocean is forever given to us. It's so much of a part of our lives, daily lives. More so in small island nations, we depend on it for just about everything. Yeah.
Dr. McCoy, I hope that you will be able to continue with sometimes your colleagues and not just the great work you're doing. Come in and accept an invitation to join us on the program from time to time to share not just from your research and your observations, but your passion. So that, as you said, we treat our oceans like our bodies. We respect, not just our maritime history, heritage, and connection, but the importance of what we're doing now impacting future generations. So I commend you for your passion.
Yeah, we want our bodies to last as long as we can keep it going, right?
Yeah.
If we treat it right, think of the ocean that way.
Healthy
we want
body,
it to
man.
last forever. So
Thank you.
Treat it well.
Have a wonderful afternoon too, Dr. McCoy, and next rest of your week as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Susan, for joining us. Tomorrow is Thursday, of course. I want you to be a part of us. You may have developed a little sense of some of the things that we've been doing on Thursdays. Well, we're going to have that discussion. I'm looking forward to having both Miss, Tiffany Conley join us and Stephanie Dos Santos. We're going to have an interesting discussion. Part of our Thoughtful Thursday take on Talk Today. That's tomorrow. So until then, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.